Sounds like Jordan just sitting there lighting some insects, playing a couple minor keys, few chords.
Just sitting in the dark with a keyboard, just a couple notes.
All right, Awesemo, here we go. It's your old pal Emac coming to you on a Sunday night with the usual crew here as we get ready for NFL Live Before Lock, brought to you by Prize Picks. I am joined by Nick and Terry once again. My condolences to anybody who is a Buffalo Bills fan. That was a rough one today. My condolences to all of our DFS lineups. We were talking before the show that somehow somebody must have won, but we're not sure who, because this was a bloodbath out there. Landry, no bueno. Moore in the late games, no bueno. Looks like Eckler got a little something, yet somehow the random tight ends outproduced him. It was just a disaster out there today, Terry. What did you see? Anything good in your lineups?
I saw way too much of the Bills game, so not very much good. They kept going back to that just for the laughs of Josh Allen sacking Josh Allen and then Josh Allen intercepting Josh Allen, which they mentioned on Red Zone, I'm going to say 37 times throughout the afternoon. So naturally, I have to bring it up here. So I saw that. I saw a lot of ugly football and just my lineups going downhill throughout the day. They started out in the first 5 minutes of the day. I thought I was going to have a nice day. I think I even mentioned it to you when we were chatting in our Slack behind the scenes, and it immediately went south. So yeah, everything died on the vine with those Josh Allen lineups.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mess. Nick, how did you do? You had a nice little run last week. Did you maintain anything this week?
No, it was just all a disaster completely. Josh Allen, Zeke, Cole Beasley, Jarvis Landry, just to name off a few disasters in my lineups, but it is what it is. We got to recoup tonight. Hopefully have a much better time.
All right. I'm trying things out here with my ring light. We'll see what happens here. We're going on the fly here. Jordan's shaking his head. He's wondering what the hell's going on. This looks a little better. Maybe we'll see how it goes. All right. We have almost an hour until kickoff here. We've got some interesting stuff going on. Quite a bit of injury news here in this game, or moving parts, shall we say. We've got, of course, Derrick Henry's the big news. He is out for the foreseeable future. Could be the rest of the season. The earliest he could come back is 2 months. It's foot surgery. I don't think he's had it yet, but it's a longer recovery. And then there's the risk if he could easily have a setback. So we'll see what happens with that. Kari Blasingame, the fullback's out on injured reserve with a knee. Darrington Evans also out, and guard Nate Davis not playing. Julio not on the injury report somehow, but we know his hamstring is tender. AJ Brown's out there with a sore knee. He's going to play tonight. Robert Woods dealing with a sore foot or a foot issue. I couldn't get a lot of information about that to determine how worried we should be. And did they just give him the designation for midweek practices? I don't think he practiced until Friday when he was limited. Same thing with Stafford with the back issue, but that could just be veteran mid-season rest where they sort of got, I'm not feeling great, and put a tag on him. And then Von Miller not joining the team, or he is joining the team, but he is not playing tonight. He is injured as well. We've got the running backs. I didn't see, was Donta Foreman active tonight? Do you guys know? I know Adrian Peterson is. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about veteran Jeremy McNichols. He of 25 total NFL games is the senior back in the backfield here. And we've got Cooper Kupp, who's absolutely amazing. This should be a fun one. Good defense here by the Rams, and a bit of a desperation. 6-2 for Tennessee, and they're looking a little sketchy. Their season could be going down the tubes here quickly, but let's jump on into this. We, of course, are sponsored by Prize Picks. We will definitely talk about them. We're going to do what we usually do here, and that is build a couple of lineups on each of the main sites just to kind of show you guys what we're thinking about. We'll cover our analysis during these builds. We'll do FanDuel first, then we'll do Yahoo, and then we'll wrap her up there with DraftKings. Focus on any of the analysis we somehow missed during this. Usually we don't, and we'll get into some prize picks, and then we'll answer some questions. So we've got a nice little evening laid out for us. I think Home Depot's open late tonight. Maybe we'll go there if we have enough time.
Not sure if we're gonna have enough time though.
I made a Frank the Tank quote or a reference yesterday, so why not continue with that all today.
Love it.
All right, so let's head on over here to the blue side. This is the FanDuel game. Let me open up the contest so I can join in. Terry, this is your home site. Would you like to start us off here? We have Matt Stafford at 17,000, Cup at 16, Tannehill at 14, Darrell Henderson Jr. at 13, AJ Brown at 12, and Robert Woods at 11.5. Nice little stratification there at the top. Lead us through our build here.
Yeah, so let's take a look. As usual, the thing I'm going to do is just pull up our board for the top stacks for, or the top showdown plays, I should say, which everybody can find under the top stacks tab. And if we're looking at that, there's not a ton of leverage in the captain spot on FanDuel today. The leader is Adrian Peterson with a 2 in the category. And then we rapidly get into some negative numbers here. There's always the argument for going with a quarterback in the captain spot on FanDuel, the MVP spot. I like going with a pass catcher, and I think that's probably what I'm going to do here. It would be super chalky to go with Cooper Kupp. He's getting a significant amount of ownership, around 18% ownership. He's around 18% optimal on the spot. He's the leading optimal play. We could go a step down and we could go to AJ Brown on the other side of that one. I'm thinking maybe we go 2 steps back and go to Robert Woods here. I know he's banged up. He didn't practice through the week, but he's good to go. It seems like he's going to play. I think there might have been some maintenance in there, which is a little bit interesting too. It's not even midway through the season, and we're already seeing just a ton of guys injured and a bunch of different maintenance type situations. And we're playing 17 weeks this season, so it'll be interesting to see that. But I'm going to take a little bit of a lower owned captain play here, who's the 3rd most optimal on the FanDuel board. He's only getting owned 8% of the time. So anytime we can get a 10%-ish optimal guy, get him owned under 10%, gain a little bit of leverage. He's also the number 2 on the board by leverage. So we'll go with Robert Woods in the captain spot here.
All right, Nick, let's walk this over to you. A lot of different ways we can go with this one. We can look towards Stafford here, go for a little synergy play. We can look towards Cooper Kupp. We can turn to the other side. We can pretty much take anybody we want. If we take Stafford, we'll still have 10,500, find ourselves one discount dandy, and then we have a lot of other choices there. So definitely the board's still wide open after this first selection.
Yeah, I completely agree. There was 2 options I was looking at. Obviously, Stafford would be the obvious pick, and then Stafford's teammate, Van Jefferson. I really like Van Jefferson now without Deshaun Jackson. I just feel like he's in a really good situation to succeed. And as long as he finds the end zone in this game, which is definitely possible up against the Tennessee Titans defense, that I think this is going to be a really good pick. But we'll go with Matt Stafford because it's just the safe pick, that nice correlation play.
All right, that leaves us 10,500. I'm just looking here. So sort of the thoughts here, Adrian Peterson obviously has more value on the non-receiving or the half PPR sites. It's not like he's bad in the passing game. He just, throughout his career, he's never really had more than 2.8 targets per game, 3 targets per game. The last 5 seasons he's played for 5 different franchises. Of course, he was signed earlier this week to step in for the Tennessee Titans. Of course, they also re-signed Deonta Foreman, who played half a dozen games for them last year. So theoretically, he would have a leg up in the knowledge of what's going on here. For the playbook. However, when Peterson's in the game, it's going to be all right. Off tackle left, 2-hole right, gap A behind the guard right. It's not like he's going to have to know fancy plays because he's really not going to be out there for pass protection, and he's really not going to be out there for anything else other than to run the ball. We want to remember he is 36. He'll be 37 this spring. Just putting that out there. This is a bit of a. I think there's a lot more. What do we say? All hat, no cattle, if we were in Texas. I would like to consider here with my selection, after I talk about Adrian Peterson, I think I'd like to go with Julio Jones. I'd like to throw caution to the wind, just sort of see what happens here. Let's see if we can get an up and down game. We're going to target Woods here on the other side. We're getting a discount from AJ Brown of just $1,500, so it's only about 10%. It's not crazy, but I think we can utilize that $1,500 elsewhere. So that's the direction I want to take us. Terry, what do you got here?
All right. Well, that leaves us in an interesting spot with the lineup construction here. We could go back to the idea of getting correlation and just go with Julio's quarterback, go double quarterbacks in the flex spots, which I think is kind of an interesting build here. And it's affordable enough. It leaves us with 7,000 on the table. So we could get to a few different interesting plays anyway, more of the skill players on the Tennessee side than on the Rams side. But you get to the Rams running backs here, or the second string running backs anyway. You can get to a bunch of different guys from the Titans side of things. I think that's what I'm going to do. I hadn't really put all that much consideration into it, but I don't really want to go with Peterson here. The other guy I was thinking of was Darrell Henderson. Just grabbing the Rams running back there. 13K off the top would leave us 8 on the board. That would have let Nick get to Van Jefferson. That would have let us do a couple other things here. But I think I just want to grab the correlation play here, go with Tannehill, and then let's see what happens with that last $7,000. And if we switch it up, we switch it up.
All right, Nick, let's see what we've got for your choices here. Of course, we have the tight ends there for Tennessee. Kind of no matter how you slice it, they literally are all equal between Pruitt, Ferkser, and I am blanking on the other guy, Jeff Swaim, former Cowboy. So Swaim's been on the field a little bit more than the others over the last few games. Ferkser did miss 2 games. They're all within like 3 total targets of each other. Over the last 4 weeks, they're all within 2 targets of each other. Pruitt has 2 touchdowns. It's just, no matter how you cut it, it's like, oh, this guy's ahead by a smidge in this one and this guy in this one. So I really don't know how you slice it. On DK, there's significant savings for not going. I think it's Wim that's more expensive there. He's the one player is double what the others are. So on FanDuel, it's different consideration there. The other options would be Ben Skowronek. Apologies to Ben and his family for mispronouncing that name. He's the guy that sort of stepped in, got 3 targets last week. He had not really played much at all, but with Deshaun Jackson released per his request, he's there. I'd kind of lean towards Sony Michel in a what the hell. We don't have Henderson on this team. It kind of fits in there nicely, but this is all up to you, Nick, or if you need to back us out of one of these and have a good argument, we can do that as well.
No, we're not going to backtrack here. We're going to go with Jeff Swaim. We love the tight ends on the showdown slate. At least I do. So I love Jeff Swaim. He seems as though he's the number 1 tight end. And we have to also talk about the fact that since George Kittle missed National Tight End Day, that's why he played so well today. So I figured I'd bring it up again.
Yes, for 3 weeks in a row, we've had National Tight End Day because last weekend both teams were on a bye. So there we are. All right, so that wraps it up there with Robert Woods, Matt Stafford, Julio Jones, Ryan Tannehill, Jeff Swaim. We'll get that entered into that contest there. All right, let's move on over here to the old Yahoo. Let's get into a lineup here. I have gotten I put one lineup in, so let's put another one in here. All right. Nick, we're going to start off with you here. This is an interesting one. I think we may want to leave some salary on the table. They have Cooper Kupp all the way up at $41. He is by far the most expensive option. Derrick Henry was at 40. Of course, he's on the injured reserve. Then you've got Stafford at 34, and then nobody else is more than 25. You've got Tannehill, A.J. Brown, Robert Woods, Darrell Henderson, all within $1 of each other at that price point. And then if we slide down below 60 or below 20, you've got Julio Jones, Van Jefferson, Jeremy McNichol, Sony Michel at various price points. They do not have Adrian Peterson in their player pool here, but DraftKings and FanDuel do have them in there. Nick, go ahead and start us out here with our superstar position. This is the 1.5 multiplier there, half PPR on this side.
Yeah, so my thought process was initially going to be Cooper Kupp, but I feel like $41 is just a banana price for that guy. That's just insane. But at the end of the day, he is just that good that it could make sense. So we're going to just go ahead, go a little bit cheaper, and just go ahead and get Matthew Stafford as our superstar. Stafford has been playing really well thus far this season, ever since coming from Detroit. Obviously, he's in a very good scenario. So tonight we'll go ahead and go with the quarterback captain and go with Matthew Stafford.
All right. Now, the interesting thing is you could still go Cooper Kupp and you could go with a whole bunch of $16 players, which is one way to do this, which was why I mentioned all those $16 players. Or we could choose to go, say, a different direction here. Terry, I'm kind of feeling a little bit of love for Darrell Henderson on this one, on the Henderson Tannehill double pick here. And since I am the host, I am making a double pick here because I invent the rules as we go along. But we will start off with Stafford, Henderson, Tannehill. You have $21 per spot. The only person that is out of play is Cooper Kupp. Otherwise, you can choose anybody else, and we will be able to fulfill our lineup.
No dollar dandies on the board, huh? It's all $10 minimum. All right, so we
$10
can't
minimums.
Cooper Cup there. Derrick Henry's out, so he's off the table. We can poke around with some of these other guys here, though. Certainly it would make some sense to grab some correlation with Tannehill, or to grab. Honestly, we should grab some correlation with either passer. Darrell Henderson, a little bit of involvement in unpredictable fashion in the passing game. Only 2 targets in week 8, 6 targets in week 7, 3 in week 6, had 6 in week 4. So he gets some looks, but it's not heavy or reliable involvement. So I'd like to get some correlation with either one or both of the passers. Since we've got Stafford in the superstar role, it probably makes sense to look to him. So I'll look to somebody that correlates with Tannehill, because that's just how I do things. So let's see. We talked about the tight ends a little bit on the other site, and I agree with selecting Swaim, although we do see Michael Pruitt, when we look, has the much larger yards per target. He's at 11.55 yards per target, 2 touchdowns on the season. Swaim 4.47 yards per target, 1 touchdown on the season. So I do like that out of Michael, but just fewer looks in general in the last few. That said, I think I'm just going to kind of go with one of the obvious plays here. I said I was going to look for Tannehill correlation. I'm just going to take Julio Jones for $16. I think that's a nice price on him. And I'll leave $26 on the table for Nick to do with whatever he wants with it.
All right, Nick, you've got some interesting choices here. We could go for the super correlation there with Robert Woods. We could go with the I hope Stafford only throws it to Darrell Henderson, which may not be the best option there. So I think Woods might be our call here. But you do have AJ Brown. You could go for that unique quarterback and wide receiver double stack in the flex spot here. Again, we're looking to be different here. We've seen weirdness almost for like 8 straight primetime games, between key people being injured, between pandemic related issues, between weather in a couple games here, key injuries, out of nowhere, etc. A lot of moving parts here. Backup quarterbacks have worked their way into the mix more than once. It's kind of been out there. Chaos reigns supreme, I guess, this year. What do you want to do here with our last spot? $26, and you can get anybody you want here. Before
Nick goes, just real quick, just to interject, you mentioned that, it's a strange lineup because we wouldn't have Stafford correlation if he doesn't pick one of those receivers, and you'd be betting on that. And you'd be hoping that he throws the ball to Henderson. It's not necessarily that way, because you could certainly get the case where Stafford throws a few touchdown passes, or just throws the ball around a lot, gets a lot of yardage out of a few different receivers, which he has the capability to do, and he's got the weapons to do it with. And then Henderson just punches the touchdowns in. So there is a narrative where Stafford makes sense at the superstar, Henderson makes sense at a flex play, and none of the other receivers really stands out head and shoulders above the others. And we can pick off some value and a unique lineup construction by doing that. So just to throw that into the mix with another reason to potentially consider a build like this.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I think we'll get a little spicy here. We'll go with AJ Brown. It's obviously different to not go ahead and get Robert Woods. We've seen AJ Brown get over 9 targets in the last 3 games. He has a touchdown in each of the last 2 games, and I believe that is entirely possible to happen again here tonight up against the Rams. So my lean will be to go with AJ Brown. Definitely a little bit different, though. I do think that.
All right, that takes care of our first 2 sites. We've got about 45 minutes or so until lock. Plenty of time here. We're going to walk over there and look at DK. I want to remind you that we are sponsored by PrizePicks. If you guys have not yet signed up at PrizePicks, you can do so. And when you make your first deposit, use the promo code Awesemo, and that will grant you up to a $100 deposit match from PrizePicks. Put in $100, they'll give you $100. That money comes out first when you enter into your contest. You put in 50, they'll give you 50. Put in 200, they're still just going to give you 100. But again, that money comes out first. It's a great way to go. They are player prop site with the fantasy twist. So this is available in states that do not have sports wagering just yet. It's a lot of fun. You build out your prop card with 2, 3, 4, or 5 different questions there. You can look across at any given time about a dozen different sports. They have same game parlays. They have second half football and first half football as well. The only rule that there is, you can't use the same player twice on a card. You would have to split the card and create another one. Otherwise, you can do pretty much darn well whatever you please. It's a lot of fun over there. They also do fantasy points in addition to the usual yardage, completions, receptions, touchdowns, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll talk about them in a moment there. And if you guys can do us a big favor, hit that like button. We got 2,000 likes and had over 4,000 concurrent viewers on the 4-hour block show before kickoff today. So that was pretty cool. Love to see us get up to around 100 here. Give us a little bit of love. It's a long night. It's a long day for us when we start out at the crack of dawn, putting out the articles and being on all the shows. But we do appreciate all of you for tuning in.
I woke up from a nap to be on this show.
Oh,
Like 2 minutes before I got on the Zoom before, I was out cold.
All right. Well, I don't feel so bad chasing down some pizza because I was a little bit hungry before this, and I'm doing the Slate Starter podcast afterwards. So I've got a busy night ahead of me. All right, let's head over here on to the DraftKings. Let me open up a contest here. So Nick, we're gonna let you go first on this one since I made up some rules in the last one. I will forego my number one pick, but who do you want to start us out with here on the amazing DraftKings single game slate?
Yeah, I think here we have to get Cooper Kupp in one of the lineups. And I understand that's like the most chalk play maybe ever imaginable because of just how good the guy is. Everyone knows how good Cooper Kupp is. I'm not going to stand here and read off 5,000 stats or sit in the chair, read off 5,000 stats. Everyone knows how good Cooper Kupp is. We're going to go.
I can do it from memory for you. Leads the league with 90 targets, leads the league in rushing, leads the league in touchdowns, leads the league in 20-yard plays, leads the league in first downs. He's amazing.
Wow. That's great. Let's do it.
And just validating your amazing choice here. Shout out to Sammy Telesco there for the super chat there, sending love from the Buffalo War Pig Nation. We also have a 199 chat here. 5-1 stack with Cooper Kupp and the captain and the Tennessee kicker too crazy? No, not at all. Not anything goes on these slates. Realistically, all you would need to do is for is it Randy Bullock, I believe, is still their kicker. You would just need him to get 2 field goals. And if he gets like a 30-yarder and a 40-yarder, all of a sudden he's got 7 points and change. Only thing I want to point out with him, I'm going from memory here, but I believe he only has 5 kicks from over 50 yards in the last 15 games. Something along those lines. I'll pull up those numbers, but it's surprisingly he didn't really seem to have as much of a leg as I would have thought. Pretty good field goal kicker. I think 83% career average, but I was surprised that they don't let him kick super far. Terry, we'll go over to you here. We've got Cooper Kupp. Who would you like to do? You want to put in the Tennessee kicker and see if we can build out a 5-1 stack here?
So I would interject that I think that lineup's totally viable. I think it's a good approach. I think a lot of people will be chasing that one. And if we're using any of the historical sampling that we've done at the site and that I've covered in some of my articles, it turns out that a lot more of the winners tend to be evenly built lineups, whether they're 3-3s or 4-2s in one direction or the other. Typically 4-2, not 2-4, if we're referring to the captain and the correlation there and the set with his teammate. So while 5-1 is totally viable, it is not necessarily the most frequent winner. Wide receivers in the captain spot, though, are the most frequent winner. So I do like what you're doing there. You're obviously taking the best wideout in the game. I would just encourage that person to get a little bit different and start looking into some of those leverage plays in your flex rolls, because everybody's going to have Cooper Kupp in that captain spot. It's looking 18% ownership and 15% optimal. So a little negatively leveraged there to start us out. So what I'm going to want to do is kind of a similar idea. I'm just going to jump over to the leverage column. I'm going to sort us by that. We have the other Rams receivers, pass catchers, all basically positively leveraged, with Woods, Higbee, Van Jefferson Jr. all coming up positively leveraged, all decently optimal as well. So good plays there. Excuse me. The other thing that we always see is there's always a quarterback in these lineups with very, very few exceptions. No matter what the game total is, no matter what the spread has been, there's always at least one quarterback in a flex spot. I've brought that up on numerous shows. A lot of times we see winning lineups with 2, but almost always there's 1 in the flex spot here. Since we went with Kupp in the captain spot, it would kind of be natural to go to Stafford, but he's really negatively leveraged in the flex position. I'm not saying we won't do it, but I'm going to go the different direction and build a little bit of a different lineup. We get a little bit of positive leverage on Tannehill. We get one of the high-end producers. We get our quarterback into the lineup, and then we can decide if we have enough money to correlate with Kupp in the captain spot. We don't necessarily need to. It's not always the correlated quarterback. Surprisingly, more often than not, it is, but not always. So I'm going to go Tannehill here.
right, so let me get back to that screen because I got a lot open. So we got Mr. Tannehill, we got Cooper Kupp here.
Oh, and by the way, somebody in chat was saying AP might have a big game. He needs to get paid. He's getting his $160,000 whether he has a big game tonight or not, or excuse me, $140,000 for the minimum for the season. So his performance tonight isn't really going to matter very much. So I wouldn't sweat it for that. And somebody else asked if we're still talking about DFS and the DFS side of the game. We're building DFS lineups right now, buddy. So pay attention.
I've got to applaud that. Thank you. Thank you. Keeping us on track while building DFS lineups to stay talking about DFS lineups. Love it. Love it. You know what I also love? Darrell Henderson. I'm going to move him into our lineup here. That gives us 41.33. That means we're going to have to come down here. We could look at an Adrian Peterson at 3,000. I am guessing 10 to 12 touches total. I would say 8 to 10 carries in 1 to 2 targets is my guess for him. I don't think we're going to see a major game. And then even if we look at him going into the red zone, I do want to remind everybody that over his last 15 games, Tannehill has, let's see, I think it's 8 touchdowns. He had like 5 in the last 4 weeks last season. He has 3 this season. He had 7 total last season. So he's no stranger. It's not like he's getting them on sneaks, but if they lose track of him, he will run it in. He doesn't look to run a lot, but he is more mobile than expected. I think he's in play. We get down here and we've got the tight ends who are really discounted with Ferkser and Pruitt at 1,400 and 1,200. That gives us a ton of flexibility. We still have Jeff Swaim at 3,400, but I would consider those $2,000 discounts to be pretty viable here as we get down on the lower end of things here. And then Josh Reynolds is inactive tonight. I know some people were hoping he'd get a remember me game. He will not. He'll be waving from the sideline. Nick, who would you like to go here? We got 41.33 left.
Okay, well, we're not going to go with this pick, but I thought it'd be interesting to bring up because we already have Tannehill, but I'm very interested in the Rams defense. Now, obviously wouldn't fit into this lineup construction, but that's kind of something I wanted to talk about. But let's go ahead and get Mr. AP in this. I wanted to go Sony Michel, but we already took Darrell Henderson, and I feel like that's also not a positive thing to go 2 running backs at the same time on the same team. I don't think that's going to work here. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Adrian Peterson here. I think he has a good game. I assume that he's going to be the guy on the first 2 downs. Then we see McNichols being the pass catching back on the team. So let's just hope that they're able to keep up in this game and we see a decent amount of AP.
All right, Terry, let's run this one back to you here. A couple spots left. You've got some flexibility now. We're up to $4,700 per slot. Still got those cheap tight ends and a couple others. A lot of maneuverability here.
Yeah, a bunch of different directions we can go with it. I'm just looking through some of the available picks. I was kind of hoping we'd get through the entire show without picking AP in any of these. I feel like he's burnt me like 4 times in comebacks already, and why are we going to his comeback again? But I get it. I think it's the right pick by Nick there. He's the leading play by leverage. He's the leading play in the captain role by leverage as well. You get him at a super cheap price. There's opportunity for production. He doesn't have to do very much for us to pay off that price. So it makes a ton of sense to go to that play there. So I don't actually object to it. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, he's burnt me so many times already. Taking a look around, we've got the 4,700 average to play. We've got a lot of weight in the Tennessee side of this one right now, I think, with that. Well, no, that's not really true with that, with Kupp and Henderson both in there. So I can go either way with this. We could correlate a little bit more into Tannehill with the passing game here, which makes some sense. So I'm going to go to those tight ends. I mentioned Michael Pruitt earlier and his leading the other tight ends in terms of the yards per target, but the touchdowns are unpredictable. The volume is going to be unpredictable for the tight end. So I'm not really inclined to go that way. If I go back to Julio here for 7,400, it leaves us $2,000 to spend in our last click here. Is there anything we like on the board for $2,000 is kind of my question.
I would probably go with Ferkser or Michael Pruitt at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have no issues whatsoever.
Yeah. We could go with those guys. There's Chester Rogers on the board at 18 if you wanted to go to another wideout. I think it kind of makes sense. You're getting the double correlation there with Tannehill if you go that route. I was just thinking if there was anything else that anybody had in mind. I think that's the biggest upside on the board available here. In terms of leverage, I don't love it. Everybody's going to the Julio play in the flex spot when they go to him. So it's not the greatest move there. He's the second most negatively leveraged play in the flex spot at negative 4.5. I don't love doing that, but I think for the overall upside, the overall raw point scoring capability of this lineup, I think it makes sense. And I think double booking the running backs in here and the way we built this probably is not going to be all that overowned or all that duplicated here. So I'm going to go with the Julio pick. That leaves us $2,000 to make that last selection.
All right. Do you guys have a strong lean towards Ferkser or Pruitt? I'm leaning towards Ferkser, but there is no rhyme, no reason.
I'm good either way, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would say that's your call to make. I would, if I was making it, I had thought that Ferkser would be more the guy this season, but Michael Pruitt, like I said, clawed back a little bit of the volume and has a 11.55 yards per target compared to a 6.06 for Ferkser. No touchdowns for Ferkser on the year, 2 for Michael Pruitt. But in terms of targets, Pruitt only saw 2, I think, last week. So
yeah,
two targets
Ferkser
last week, 3 the week before.
Ferkser missed weeks 3 and 4, I believe, as well.
Yeah. So I mean, you get limited volume.
2 and 3. He missed weeks 2 and 3. So
right, and then since coming back, he's been 1 target, 2 targets. So it's low volume either way. We're looking to pick off a touchdown here and maybe a handful of yards. So I would take it. I would be fine either way.
All right, Ferkser it is. So that is Cooper Kupp, Ryan Tannehill, Darrell Henderson Jr., Adrian Peterson. Yes, that Adrian Peterson. Julio Jones. Boy, what is this? 2011? And then Anthony Ferkser here. All right. We'll put that one in. The one thing I did want to mention about Chester Rogers, he does return punts and kicks. This is going to be just the 5th game, I think, of the year where both Julio and AJ Brown have been healthy. So Rogers will definitely go back to not seeing many targets. He only had 1 each of the last 3 games. So a little bit tough on that one.
I love YouTube chat.
Is there something funny that you would like to share with us, Mr. McBride?
Yeah. Jelly McCaskill in YouTube chat calling out that Adrian Peterson, 37-year-old Adrian Peterson, who has made $96 some odd million, I think, in his career and is going to the NFL Hall of Fame when he's wrapped it up, has been waiting for his opportunity. Yes.
His whole life.
He's been waiting in the wings. Yes, this is the first chance he's going to get to make something of himself on the gridiron. So go, Adrian Peterson. Good luck to you.
Good.
I've never even heard of him.
Good times.
That I would believe, Nick. You're a little bit on the young side. You might have missed the first part of his career.
Yeah, he's been in the league since I was born, I think, at this point.
I think it was this was his year 15 for him in the league. So just for anybody scoring at home, he is 2 years younger than Frank Gore. I did go look that up as well when I was doing my articles, just because I was a little bit curious.
Wow.
All right, so we don't have any free premium content tonight because we're down to just the primetime slate, but we do have 6 free articles on the front of the homepage for Awesemo.com covering just this game. I've done a full breakout with an entire player pool ranking for DraftKings and FanDuel. I've also done a Yahoo feature piece. We have Matt Zaboka, who's broken down this game. We have 3 different betting articles on this, and I believe one T McVie must have an article there because that's all you do is write articles.
Oh yeah. For this game, yep, I put up an article. I was only half listening to you there, but yeah, 2 articles up today. One for basketball, one for football, plus the update for football for the full slate this morning. And we'll be back at it tomorrow. I think just a basketball. Oh no, basketball and a Showdown football article tomorrow as well. No shows tomorrow though, so a lot of content coming.
All right, so let's run through the items here and see if we missed anything. So let's see here. The key things to remember about Tannehill is that the Los Angeles has the 9th overall DVOA. They're 8th best against the run, 18th against the run, 8th against the pass. Tannehill has 265 passing yards in half of his games this season. However, just 2 multi-touchdown games. We know that the running back is a bit of a mess there. I still think it's going to be Jeremy McNichols on over half the snaps. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he gets the start. This is his 5th season. He is going to be playing game number 25 tonight. I believe he has played for 4 different franchises in his career. So while he has been around, he hasn't been on the field that much. The Julio Jones, AJ Brown conundrum here. We'll break out that one a little bit more, Nick, and then we'll have you talk about that, Terry, because they've both been dealing with several injuries throughout the season, be it their hamstrings, knees, and ankles.
Yeah, it seems like Julio Jones is just always injured at this point. But I think that Julio Jones does have a pretty solid chance, just as does A.J. Brown. But A.J. Brown has just so heavily dominated the target share recently. But with that said, Julio Jones hasn't been healthy recently. So when they're both on the field, things get a little bit different. So I think that A.J. Brown's the better play tonight, obviously in a vacuum, but he's also priced much higher. I think that we could see a decent usage of Julio Jones. I'm trying to pull up his stats, but for some reason, I just can't find it right now. I got it. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. Julio Jones, last game before he ended up getting hurt, he had 2 receptions on 4 targets the game before. So he's averaging like 5 targets a game. And then dating back to earlier on in the season, he was a much bigger target in this offense with both A.J. Brown and him. So I'm fine playing Julio Jones this week as well. What do you think, Terry? Do you have a preference between the two?
I always love going to Julio for better or for worse throughout his career for DFS purposes. So I'm fine going there. That said, A.J. Brown, pretty spectacular. Looking at the numbers, Julio does lead in yards per target, 11.15 yards per target to 9.43 for A.J. Brown. A little bit more average depth of target as well, 13.6 A-dot for Julio Jones, a 12.2 for A.J. Brown. Brown's gotten in the end zone 3 times. Julio hasn't gotten there yet. Julio a little bit more banged up, I think. Realistically, I just think A.J. Brown, healthier person right now. So if we're just going purely on general health and maybe a guy who might not be as physically limited on the field, a younger guy as well, of course, we go to A.J. Brown. But I have no issues with going to Julio pretty frequently here. The one thing that I would sweat on the Julio play is that he's so negatively leveraged. We get him, it looks like 17% ownership in the flex role and only 13% optimal. So you do have to deal with negative leverage on Julio. So just make some different decisions when you do include him in your lineup. But yeah, perfectly fine from a football sense to have him in there. And then I was just looking at McNichols' history. It looks like, unless I'm seeing something wrong, he had a 12 target, 8 catch game last year in week 4. I don't remember that at all, but it looks like he had 1 carry for 11 yards, but he had 8 catches, 12 targets, 74 yards. Didn't get the ball in the end zone, but that looks like the biggest day of his career. But was targeted when he was on the fields through 8 weeks last season with Tennessee. It looks like he was receiving some targets in the offense last year. So there's a little bit to cling to there where maybe, based on that one performance, maybe there's a little bit of possibility for him there.
All right, I'm just trying to see here. Donta Foreman is active, so he is $200 on DraftKings. I want to put.
I'm sorry, that was this year. That was this year. Yeah, 2021. I didn't realize I clicked on 21 by accident. So yeah, totally do not remember that. But he had a 12 target game earlier this year.
Who was that one against?
That was against the New York Jets.
Huh. Interesting.
Illustrious New York Jets. So looking just going, that's why I noticed it, because I jumped over to his targets for breakdown for all games this year. And it's starting from week 1, 4, 3, 2, that monster 12 target game, 2 bye week, and then 1 and then 3, or maybe missed a week. I'm not sure what that blank is. Yeah, it looks like he missed a week, and then 1 and then 3. So he's been involved a little bit in the passing game. If we can reasonably expect he's going to be on the field more, seeing more snaps in general, there's some possibility around the passing game for McNichols there, even if he's not running the ball all that much.
All right, let's continue on here.
Here, wait, Emac, let me interject real quick.
Absolutely.
Timothy with the super chat says, I won over $200,000 in the last 12 months on showdowns. My secret, Jameson probably going to win tonight. So there you go.
All right. Well, hey, we appreciate the $100. We appreciate the tip there. I love it. That's great. I don't know if it means I'm not looking at it, but I don't know if it means Jameson the alcohol or or what. But hey, let's go with it.
Jordan. I believe he's meaning Jameson the alcohol, right? Spelled a little different.
Is that how you spell? Isn't Jameson with an E? With an I?
But that's okay. Yeah. There is the Jameson is going in I, right? That's why it's an I. There we go.
There we go.
Oh, that was a solid joke.
I'm trying here. No coffee since about 9:30 this morning. So, and I ran last night. I got my second or my whatever the booster shot. It's been kicking my ass. I've had every day. You said you had a nap, Terry. I've had the non-negotiable 2-hour naps every day, but today. So I stayed up late eating a lot of candy and ice cream last night because I didn't do anything else while I was running. Finished off the old Halloween bag of what was left Mostly almond joy. I don't like almond joy, but it's all that we had.
So that's the ones the kids didn't take, huh?
Does anybody besides grandmas eat almond joy? Because it just doesn't seem like a great candy for anybody there. All right. Circling back here, Timothy Tyan, that's an impressive super chat there.
Very nice.
All right,
Very good. We do appreciate that.
Yeah,
Very nice.
absolutely. So we talked about the tight ends and how it's mixing it, literal mixing and matching. Ferkser 17 targets, Swaim 16, Pruitt 12. Ferkser did miss weeks 2 and 3. If we look at just the last 4 weeks, Swaim has played about 60% of the snaps. He's the better blocker between the two. Pruitt is next, 50 with 45 to 50% of the snaps. Ferkser just 30%. But you get that big discount for Ferkser and Pruitt on DraftKings. And then defense. Los Angeles has allowed a league low 8 sacks this season. Tennessee getting about 2 per game. The Rams have only 7 turnovers. I believe that is the third fewest in the league heading into today. The Titans have just 1.4 takeaways per game. Moving over here to the Los Angeles Rams, you've got 6 opposing quarterbacks have had multi-touchdown games against the Titans. That includes rookie Trevor Lawrence, who had 1 passing and 1 rushing. Matthew Stafford has been phenomenal. He has multi-touchdown games in, I believe, 6 of his 8 starts. And I think he has 3 or more passing touchdowns in 4 or 5 of them. He is second behind Tom Brady in touchdowns and third overall in passing yards per game. Anything you want to add to Stafford here? Or take us into the running backs and the receivers, Nick? We've already hit on this enough, but our viewer count's almost doubled since the first 20 minutes. So there's the new people watching. Hey, new people, hit that thumbs up for us, please. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, come ask us if we're still talking about DFS.
We haven't been doing that at all, actually.
Well, outside of almond joys, but
right.
All right, so with Stafford, I honestly don't have too much to add on that, but I was just going to bring up some of the good Cooper Kupp stats that you were talking about earlier. He's number 1 in targets in the NFL, number 3 in target share at the wide receiver position, 7th in air yards, 2nd in receptions, 1st in receiving yards, 1st in touchdowns. I mean, this guy basically has every accolade. Have you guys ever seen The Dictator, the movie, where he has all those medals on him? That's basically Cooper Kupp. He has all those medals on him. This guy does everything in the NFL. He's amazing. Cooper Kupp is obviously great, as is Robert Woods. Robert Woods was a guy that it seemed like a forgotten player on that team earlier on in the season. It came out that Matthew Stafford was having breakfast with Cooper Kupp. And I guess Robert Woods finally got the invite as of recently because he's been playing a lot better. So I would expect Robert Woods to have a pretty solid showing as well. And then I want to talk about Van Jefferson as well. I'll just go on a tirade here. Van Jefferson has been a very solid player, in my opinion. I think he's a great deep down the field threat for Matthew Stafford. And if this game does get out of hand, it wouldn't surprise me if Van Jefferson had a couple of long catches there in the game. So I like Jefferson a lot. You got anything else here to add on that, Terry?
Yeah, I like the Jefferson call there. 10.05 yards per target is second behind Cooper Kupp, who's at 10.27, and he's outstripping him in terms of his ADOT, 13.5 average depth of target compared to a 9.4 for Kupp and 8.6 yards for Robert Woods. So definitely he's their deep threat. He's gotten 39 looks compared to the Kupp's team leading 90 and Woods is 59. So it's a deep shot here and there, but they've connected on it a few times, 392 yards on the season, 3 TDs. So certainly a guy to keep in mind and a guy to mix in. He gets a little bit less love. He's positively leveraged on the slate for DK, sitting at a 3.7 leverage score, coming up 27.3% of the time in the optimal lineup, getting on less than that. Even viable as a captain play. 8% optimal in the captain spot, coming up with a positive leverage score in the captain role as well. So definitely not a receiver to sleep on. He gets in the end zone on a deep ball and sees a few more catches and you're there. So I like it.
All right. Anything else we want to mention about either one of these teams? We'll talk a little bit of price picks. Probably should mention a little bit on quickly with Higbee. Remember when Higbee had that awesome stretch to end the season, and then I think he might have even done something in the playoff game. Yeah, we haven't seen it. No Gerald Everett this year. What the hell?
Gerald Everett remembers.
Yeah, Gerald Everett definitely remembers in Seattle. But Higbee has 36 targets on the season. Johnny Munt has 1. While Higbee is not getting the yardage, he has not topped more than 50 yards since week 1. He does have 4 or more receptions in 5 games. He also is third or fourth on the team in red zone targets. 1/3 of his total targets have come in the red zone. So we want to remember that. We know that Sean McVay will spread the ball around to everybody in the red zone at some point during the season. Higbee or Woods or Kupp, they'll get that little flip / handoff for a score. It just, anything goes in the red zone. But I want to point that out. Sony Michel, we didn't cover a ton. He's only played in games where the Rams have really needed Darrell Henderson. He plays about 70 to 80% of the snaps. Sony Michel gets the rest. I think it's about 3-1 in the red zone where Henderson does have the advantage. Henderson has 5 rushing touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns, and then Henderson's 7th in the league with something like 74 yards per game, which works out to just almost a 1,200 yard season, which is pretty good in the old 16 game format. Terry mentioned that his receiving the volume really hasn't been there, but he has been lining up per Matt Savoca's article. He's been lining up in the slot quite a bit. One of the most among any running back that's in the league this season. So just food for thought out there for these different ones. And then finally wrapping up the defense, each team's averaging about a turnover per game on offense and defense. The Rams lead the league with 25 sacks. Tennessee is allowing the 4th most this year with just over 3 per game. Whew, a lot of information there. We got 19 minutes until we get to a lock here. Let's talk a little bit of Prize Picks. So key things you want to know about Prize Picks. It's now available in the state of Maryland too. If you use that promo code Awesemo, they will match you with your first deposit up to $100. That money comes out first when you are making your player cards. Basically, you choose from any of a couple hundred questions that they have throughout the day. You can do cross sports. They have esports. They have all the major sports and a lot of the minor sports as well. Plenty of soccer. They've got highlight out there. They had the hot dog eating contest. Pretty much they'll put anything up there. Their lines are not static. They do move, though they are not as aggressive as regular books. They also, of course, are not charging us the VIG or the rake or what have you on there, but that based upon where they're setting the lines, it's sort of implied there. But the nice thing you can do is you can go over to Awesemo's sister site, Odds Shopper, and you can sort on the Shop NFL if you would like, and you can compare some of those odds against what's happening on Prize Picks. And the nice thing about that Odd Shopper is Awesemo's projection. Alex and Steve and Sean's on and everybody who's working on the projections, their projections are now coming through onto those sites. They're telling us where are we going? Should we go over or under? What the likelihood of the win is, and then you'll see the probability of the ROI. Well, the ROI is going to bounce around a lot because depending on how much we're paying or we're getting back is our advantage to take the over or the under. Mathematically, that's where you get a little nibble here, a little cookie there, and all of a sudden you're getting half your bets right and you're losing money. That's not going to happen to you over there on Prize Picks. Anything else I missed there, Terry? I see you're reading chat again. Anything good?
Yeah, just somebody 720 Red Dog going on a bit of a rant about telling the truth and about holding us to the fire for our takes because people are making wagers on these things. Hey, buddy, hold me to the fire anytime. I'm the first to say when I'm wrong. I'm the last to say when I'm right, quite honestly. I actually think it's more interesting and more fun to be wrong about some of these things, but I think we do pretty well as a channel, and I think the Hall of Fame results and everything that you see in the standings from sport to sport kind of speaks for itself. So yeah, kind of a bad take there, but yeah, I enjoy reading the chat. There's a lot of fun stuff going on in there. I encourage everybody to sign up for a membership. It's pretty cheap over at the site right now. We have a lot of different promos going on. Hop into the Discord channel, say hi, give us hell. Tell us we did a good job. Tell us we did a bad job, whatever the case may be. But I'm psyched to talk about some Prize Picks here. Let's get into it.
All right. So, of course, I did drop that on the run sheet for you guys, so you can easily see them. I took these about an hour ago. Of course, there could be slight movement on them, but this will be directionally correct. So passing yards, we've got a little wiggle room here. Matthew Stafford, the open Prize Picks now, was actually, when I pulled this, was 295.5. Awesemo has him for about 316 yards. He is averaging, I want to say about 316, 307, somewhere like that on the season. So it's up there. I would lean towards the over on this one. As we've talked about a lot, and we do a show every Saturday with Eitan, we talk a lot about the high quarterback yardage totals. it just feels better when they're up near 300. Even though we're projecting the median outcome of 300, things can go wildly different. It's just a nice cushion when you get it, 10% higher or 8% higher than what the mark is there for the benchmark on Price Picks. So that feels good. On the other side, Ryan Tannehill, Price Picks has him at 265. Awesemo has him at 255. I'd be okay with the under. Do you guys have a particular lean on either of those? Terry, we'll start off here with you.
Looking at the under on Tannehill, we've got it's a 268.5 is the one that I'm looking at here on the boards. So it's Alex's numbers on that. It was updated just like 10 minutes ago. So it's catching the line from somewhere. Yeah, catching the line from somewhere else, a little higher of a line. We've got the under coming in at 65% on that one. It's relatively close. I feel like that's pretty good. But the over for Stafford as well at 302.5, coming in 63% of the time. Just with the general volume in the passing game, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with the over for Stafford than the under for Tannehill. I do like Tannehill. I think he's capable. I think he's got two dynamite receivers that we've talked about here, plus all those tight ends to spread the ball around to. So I can just see him trickling over that. And with both of those pretty close on the board here, I'm going to lean toward the Stafford over side of that one.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that as well. I think Stafford could easily eclipse over 300 yards. I mean, his thing is 295.5. I wouldn't be surprised if he had 325 plus yards in this game. I think he's going to look really good up against the Tennessee defense. The Titans defense isn't all that good. Has looked a little bit better as of recently, but it's going to be a tough task going up against Matthew Stafford. So I expect him to look really good.
All right, on to rushing yards. We got Adrian Peterson here. Terry, let me know if we updated these or not. We have him at 45 or 48 yards. Price Picks has him at 28. That one's kind of a lightning rod option here. I'm just seeing if that was updated.
28.5.
Price Picks says he's gone up to 32.5. So that was ticking up just a little bit. Do you guys still 32.5 feels about right for me? I just don't feel great about him. I mean, 10 carries, 3-4 yards a carry. That's going to be about right where it is. Do you guys have a strong lean on this one? Because this is what the chat wants to hear. Because this is Adrian Peterson playing for all the money in the world tonight.
And this is some DFS talk, which is what they want to hear. So
yes.
You want to go, Terry?
What do you got on this?
Yeah, take it, Nick.
All right. With Adrian Peterson, I actually think Adrian Peterson looked pretty good last year. Now, it's obviously the reason why DeAndre Swift wasn't playing last year at the beginning wasn't because Adrian Peterson was looking like he looked in like 2014 or something. It's because Matt Patricia is a bit of an idiot. But at the end of the day, he still did look good enough to me to be like, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to eclipse that. And I'm not going to tell you to just hammer the over, right? To be super excited about it. But I do think that he could eclipse that number. What do you think of Terry?
So I was just jumping. I was using that opportunity to jump over, see what he was doing last year in terms of yards per game, in terms of his touches. So it looks like he was getting 37.8 yards per game, and the line is 32.5. Obviously, different situation, different offense, and all of that. But yeah, I think I'm with you here. I think we can get there. Not a bet I would want to make if I was, actually making a wager here. But in terms of Prize Picks, if you're throwing that in, I think it's low enough that, that's one good run and then a handful of just, 4 or 5 yarders into the line. So, yeah, I think he gets there. I'm surprised. I didn't think I was going to be on a pro AP side of anything today.
What a path we've taken since the beginning of the show till just now with Terry coming right back around. You're going to get that Amazon Prime delivery around halftime of your Adrian Peterson Tennessee Titans jersey.
Terry had an epiphany during the stream.
Yeah, a couple other rushing yards props here. I'm going to go over and see if Price. Why are they changing these after I've done this? Because they're not static. Darrell Henderson at 70.5. Awesemo had him right around there. That one doesn't feel great. Tannehill's at 14.5. Awesemo has him right around there. That one doesn't feel great. And then Matt Stafford, if you want to have a full game sweat, it's 1.5. There could be kneel down plays involved when it's Stafford in the victory formation. So that one's a little tough. Nothing really stands out there. The rush or the receiving yards, of course, this is where we get some of the bigger numbers. Cooper Kupp, 96.5. Robert Woods is at 58.5. Julio is at 46.5. And AJ Brown is at 74. So none of those have moved. Awesemo has a slight lean for Julio on the yardage. a decent lean for AJ Brown, a solid lean for Robert Woods, and a pretty good one for Cooper Kupp. But again, whenever we're looking at those 100-yard games, it's tough to count on. Even though Kupp does lead the league in pretty much every receiving category there is, from big plays to touchdowns to targets to yards to receptions, that's still a tall ask. Terry, is any one of those stand out for you more than the others?
So one that I was looking through the rest of the rushing board here that we've got on the betting tools tool on the site, that was a little clunky. But one that I do think we need to call out on for Prize Picks specifically, there's that 17.5 rush yards for Jeremy McNichols. Looking at the over for that, Alex has that hitting 89% of the time. He's got him projected at 27.72. So I think that, or 26.72 rather. So I think that is like a lock to go on Prize Picks. If you're making a lineup over there, drop that in as one of your picks at 89% likely to come through. That's McNichols on the over at 17.5 rush yards. I like that a lot. That anytime you can book something with that much probability, I think you kind of got to drop it in and go from there. And then going over to the receiving yards that you were just talking about, we've got a lot of guys in the 60s and high 50s in terms of their probability to hit. And the top 4 on the board here are overs. 3 of the 4 are the obvious receivers, the wide receivers from the Rams. So if you want to pick any of the Rams receivers and they're over, you're pretty fine. You're going to be playing in the 60s in terms of your probability, between 61% and 65% from Kupp down to Van Jefferson in the order you would expect. The leading play on the board for receiving yards, though, is Anthony Ferkser over 9.5 yards. We've got that coming in 65% of the time. So tied with Cooper Kupp, I guess, there.
All right, hit that like button. We got 9 minutes to go here. Get us to 200. I'm going to drop 10 $1 head-to-heads in the DK lobby, the Showdown slate, username EMAC, Team Free Money. The last Showdown slate, I literally lost every single head-to-head. So Team Free Money was definitely giving it away.
How many lineups did Melissa play?
Yeah, Melissa, the other night I was 18-2, and she was one of the 2 that beat me. It just never stops. Always. It never stops. All right.
Hey, since just going back to Prize Picks real quick, just thinking through making a lineup card over there, since we liked the Stafford over, I think that also adds to the appeal of picking one of these Rams receivers for going over. You just get a little correlation in there, kind of makes it natural, but you can also see how we get to the over for Stafford with all 3 of his receivers expected to go over. So I really like the correlation in making a play there where you don't necessarily have to worry about how owned are these guys going to be, who else is playing them, how are they coming up in optimizers. You can just make the best picks on this site. So I think that makes a ton of sense to do.
All right. A couple more. Cooper Kupp receptions, 7.5. We have him for 8.1. And then Henderson, 2.5. We have him at 3.1. Henderson would be the one I would consider on that. Would you guys even roll the dice at 7.5 on Cooper Kupp?
Maybe. I like Cooper Kupp's receiving touchdown. He's scored in every game except for 2. And real quick, before you say anything else, super chat. Someone asked who for the captain and MVP for DraftKings and FanDuel. Jordan sent it in the Slack.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Nick, for catching that.
The rewind bar at the bottom of the screen.
I would say on DK, I would try to do whatever I could to get Cooper Kupp in. On FanDuel, I'd probably go with Henderson. Where do you land on that, Terry? And then Nick.
So, we did cover, most of this through the beginning of the show, but just going back, I think, Cooper Kupp makes a ton of sense. He's the most frequently optimal captain. He is coming in at negative leverage, though. You can gain positive leverage by going to either one of the other Rams receivers there. You can gain a little bit of significant positive leverage and a lot of salary savings by going to Adrian Peterson there. I don't love that play. The other guys are probably more enthusiastic about it. I'd be looking at one of the receivers, and history also bears that out. Looking back at the historical sample, 3-3 constructions and wide receivers in the captain role, when we have a 1.5 on either side of the 52.5 point spread, it was something like 11 of 19 had come up with a receiver, a pass catcher in the captain role, as compared to only 4 with running backs, 4 with quarterbacks. So it does make sense to go to a receiver. It would make the most sense probably to go to Cooper Kupp and not really sweat the negative leverage, but he is the most highly owned captain play. So I would be looking at Robert Woods and Van Jefferson a lot there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think if you're getting a little bit spicy, I'd go with Van Jefferson as my favorite captain play.
I like that.
All right, Terry, can you run through and see if there's any other questions? I'm going to do my upload here, and then we'll be off to the races. 5 minutes to go. Everybody, make sure you get those lineups in.
So a name that comes up here in one of the first things I'm seeing on Tulsa Dog says Sony going to close out the game, going to be a massacre. Any love? We didn't really talk much Sony Michel, but Nick, any love for you in terms of Sony Michel on this one? You getting any shares of him in like flex spots?
Yeah, I think he's a pretty solid play, if I'm being honest with you. Not a guy that I'm overwhelmingly excited for, but I think that if this game does get out of hand and the Rams are able to be up by maybe 14 points in the final quarter, that's when we'll see a lot of Sony Michel. If this game is relatively close throughout the whole game and the Tennessee Titans are able to keep up with this offense, then I don't think we'll see as much Sony Michel. So you're really hinging on the fact that the Rams are winning the game. Is that kind of your thought process on it as well?
Yeah, I think so. And then just pulling up his touches the last couple of weeks, 2 touches in week 7, 9 touches in week 6, 12 in week 5. And it's obviously, kind of negative, a reverse correlation there with what Henderson's seeing. So, yeah, I think it makes sense if you're playing that blowout script, that's where I would get to him. And that's where I would consider him in some flex spots. And then you can kind of work him in. There is some touchdown upside there. They get it within a couple yards of the end zone. He might see that carry and get it in. So definitely somebody that I would be mixing and matching. Not a guy that I'm going to make like a priority play on the slate, though, I don't think. And then just looking at some of his marks, he comes up slightly negatively leveraged, so slight that you don't really have to sweat it. He's 11.6% owned in the flex spot, 10.6% optimal. So you don't really have to sweat the negative leverage, but he's also not the most frequently optimal play. So you're walking down a specific path, but I don't hate it. It's definitely viable. Looking around.
Would you go with Van Jefferson or Julio Jones? That's the question here. Go ahead.
I think for me, I would probably go with Julio just in terms of second banana versus a third banana kind of a situation. I like both receivers quite a bit. We talked about the merits of both similar deep threats. You just have a little bit less of an opportunity with Van Jefferson where he's going to see fewer looks probably, and he's going to have to convert one of those deep looks. Nick, do you have a preference on those two? I know you like both of them through the show.
Yeah, I would definitely probably prefer to go with Van Jefferson because I think his ownership percentage is going to be lower. And I think that Julio Jones is always probable to get hurt. So, knock on wood, I don't root for injuries. I'm not a doctor either, so I'm not going to tell you that something like that's going to happen. But that is something I worry about slightly.
I am a doctor, and Julio's going to be fine. I'm saying it right here. Put him in your lineups. Now, the other thing that I was going to interject there is to go back to it, and you mentioned it in terms of the ownership. Julio is the most negatively leveraged play on the slate in the flex spot. So that is something certainly to consider. Second most negatively behind Jeremy McNichols, who I think is also somebody who's going to be involved and somebody who deserves some shares. But something to consider when you're rostering those guys. Make some different decisions elsewhere. Let's see, taking a look around, people posting lineup screenshots, people still talking about Adrian Peterson. Did the Titans keep this close? We were just saying it's kind of leaning into that idea of a Rams blowout. I don't know that I see it that way. It was a much more interesting game when Derrick Henry was going to be healthy and all of that, but I think there's enough talent on this team certainly to keep this a closer game maybe than Vegas has seen it. What do you think, Nick? You just expecting the blowout?
No, I don't necessarily expect a blowout, but that was kind of the scenario you kind of have to paint if you think Sony Michel is going to have a good game, I think. But this could be a closer game. I just worry because the Titans defense to me isn't all that good. And obviously the Rams offense is really good. So if they're able to get up a lead early, then I'm not too sure the Tennessee Titans will be able to crawl back without having the kind of escape card of just handing the ball off to Derrick Henry and the chance that he could just rush for a 99-yard touchdown at any point.
Yeah, it is. It is a very different offense taking that ridiculous weapon out of the backfield here for sure. We got a question in the premium Discord asking, would you fade Kupp if you put Woods in the captain spot? And I did build some groups for that in my groups article this afternoon. And the way that I typically handle that is to use the groups so that you're not applying the must play situation, but you're using the checkbox that they have there to apply an upgrade or a downgrade to the player based on another guy being in the captain spot. And what I was looking to do there was kind of with the idea of, all right, if Woods is going to go off, have a 150-yard day and score you 2 touchdowns, well, that's going to limit just the opportunity for Kupp to get in the end zone. Not saying he can't have a good game, not saying he can't get close to 100 yards, maybe get 1 touchdown there, but just in the overall, there's only so many TDs to go around. There's only so many yards and so many looks to go around. So what I do is put a negative point downgrade. So I think with Kupp being projected so highly, I think I had it at like negative 50% in the situation where Woods or Van Jefferson was in the captain spot. So I wouldn't necessarily take him out of consideration, but I would use him a lot less frequently. And the same would go for Jefferson. I would immediately just start looking at some of those leverage plays and working from there and trying to build in those. I would go to a quarterback, build in the quarterback most frequently. I would build in Stafford, gain the quarterback correlation. I think the kickers are a little bit relevant. I wouldn't be playing defense in this format. Defense not very viable in the high scoring formats here. So that's just kind of how I would approach it. I wouldn't take him out of consideration, but I would definitely get there less frequently, just especially based on how frequently the field is getting to him as well. You're just getting away from the most frequently owned player on the board. Nick, do you see that differently? Is that something you would you'd be looking to take him out of contention if you were getting to a Woods in the captain spot?
Yeah, probably. The one lineup I did build with Van Jefferson captain, I did not have Cooper Kupp in that lineup because I think you're just really hoping for that huge Van Jefferson day. I like Cooper Kupp a lot. I think it would be kind of crazy to full out fade Cooper Kupp in this slate, but I don't think anyone's going to do that reasonably.
All right. Yeah, that is going to get us up to lock there. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. On your way out, get us to 200 likes here. We're just a handful away. We've still got about 700 people watching. We do appreciate it. If you guys want all the premium content for the NFL Showdowns, you can utilize the promo code NFL Live Before Lock. I can't hear you. NFL Showdown LBL. I closed out of my sheet. Nightbot's been dropping it the whole time here, so don't worry about that. But you guys can get a little discount there. But you can also get the express package for $4.95 a week. That is definitely worthwhile, especially if you're only able to play on Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays. With that, we are going to get
you using that plug to reveal that you've been drunk this entire time. Got us over 200 likes. So well done at the end there.
Who, Jordan?
No, you. The way you stumbled and mushmouth through that plug.
I
was on the Jameson.
It would be nice. Right. I don't have a beverage here with me. It's kind of hard. All right. With that, gamers, good luck.